Daniel, breathe. Your dad wouldn't want you to fall apart like this.
He was everything I had.
You have me now.
She whispered, holding my face in both hands. Your dad wouldn't want you to fall apart like this. I stared at the hospital wall and said, he was everything I had. She pressed her forehead to mine. You have me now. Those words kept me alive. 2 weeks earlier I had been standing on my father's land, staring at the old oak fence, thinking about fixing it. Then my phone rang. Mr. Carter, the doctor said. You should come right away. By nightfall my father was gone. At the funeral, Olivia stood beside me the entire time. I barely knew her then. We had met only 3 months earlier at the farmer's market when she bumped into my truck and laughed like she had known me forever. You're Daniel, right? She had said. The quiet guy who sells apples. Yeah, I said. And you just dented my door. She smiled. Guess that means we're officially friends. At the funeral she squeezed my hand and said, I'll stay as long as you need. After everyone left, I sat on the porch steps with my head in my hands. I don't know how to do this, I told her. She said, then don't do it alone. That night she didn't leave. A week later my Aunt Grace visited. Daniel, she said quietly, you're grieving? Don't rush anything. I looked at Olivia. She's helping me survive. Grace frowned. Helping doesn't mean she belongs in your future. Olivia smiled at her and said, I only want him to heal. Grace didn't smile back. Mark called me later. Man, I like her, he said. You deserve someone solid after everything. You really think so? Absolutely. Don't overthink it. So I didn't. One night Olivia said, why are you always working so late? Because the land still needs repairs and the harvest doesn't wait. She touched my arm. Your father left you something beautiful. It's all I have. She looked around the property and said, and soon it'll be ours. The word ours made my chest feel warm. 2 months after my dad's death, Olivia sat across from me at the kitchen table. Daniel, she said, I don't want to waste time pretending this isn't real. I swallowed. What are you saying? She reached across the table and took my hand. Marry me. I laughed. We barely know each other. She said softly, I know your pain. I know your dreams. I know your heart. I said nothing. She added, life is short. Don't let fear steal happiness. So I said yes. When I told Mark, he whooped into the phone. You lucky idiot. Grace pulled me aside. You're moving too fast, she warned. And that land is valuable. I'm not thinking about that. You should. I didn't. Olivia started staying over every night. She cooked. She laughed. She planned. One evening she said, what did your father want for the land? He wanted it kept in the family. She nodded slowly. Then we should protect it. A week later she brought out a folder. These are just safety papers, she said. In case something happens to you. I hesitated. She frowned. You don't trust me? I do. Then sign. I didn't sign that night. Later I called Mark. Is it normal for fiancés to talk about property this much? He laughed. Dude, yes. Marriage is business too. That made sense. Grace called the next morning. Daniel, don't sign anything without a lawyer. I said, you worry too much. That afternoon Olivia sat on the porch with me watching the sunset. This place could be so much more, she said. You and me building something together. I just want peace. She rested her head on my shoulder. And I want a future. Her phone buzzed. She turned away. Who was that? I asked. Work, she said too quickly. That night I dreamed my father stood at the fence and said nothing, only shook his head. The next morning Olivia made breakfast. About the papers, she said carefully. Yeah. They're not dangerous. They just make things easier for us. I stared at the folder. She smiled. We're a team, right? Right. Then trust me. I signed. Afterward she kissed me hard and said, you won't regret this. But something in my chest felt wrong. That night Grace came by. Did you sign? Yes. Her face fell. Daniel? It's fine. She whispered, I hope I'm wrong. When she left, Olivia hugged me from behind. She doesn't understand us, she said. I know. Only we do. Later Mark dropped in. Everything good? He asked. Yeah. He looked at the folder on the table. Property stuff? Just paperwork. He smiled. That's adulthood. That night Olivia lay beside me tracing my chest. Soon, she whispered, we'll have everything we need. What do you mean? She kissed my jaw. Our life. Our land. Our future. I looked into her eyes and believed her. Then she added softly, "Where did your father keep the original property deeds?" I froze. "In the safe," I said. She smiled too sweetly. "Just curious." My stomach tightened, but I told myself I was tired, paranoid, grieving. So I kissed her and ignored the warning beating inside my chest. Olivia slid the folder across the table and said, "This is just for safety, Daniel. Nothing serious." I stared at the papers. Safety from what? She smiled. From life. From accidents. From things we can't control. I said, "Why now?" She reached for my hand. "Because we're getting married. This is what grown people do." I pulled my hand back. "My dad never mentioned any of this." She softened her voice. "Your dad trusted you. Now I need you to trust me." I hesitated. "I want to talk to someone first." Her smile stiffened for half a second. "Who?" "Mark. Or Grace." "Grace worries too much," Olivia said quickly. "And Mark will tell you the same thing I am." I said nothing. She leaned closer. "Daniel, don't make this a problem." I called Mark that night. "Property stuff before marriage?" I asked. Mark laughed. "Yeah. Totally normal. Olivia's smart for planning ahead." "So you don't think it's strange?" "No, man. You're lucky. Most people don't think about the future." I hung up feeling calmer but not calm enough. The next day Grace came by the farm. "You look tired," she said. "I'm fine." She noticed the folder on the table. "What's that?" "Just paperwork." "Daniel, don't lie to me." I sighed. "Olivia wants me to sign some documents. Something about protection." Grace's eyes sharpened. "Protection for who?" "For us." She shook her head. "You should slow down." "Why?" "Because love makes people blind." I snapped, "You don't know Olivia." Grace replied softly, "I know people." Olivia walked in then. "Everything okay?" Grace stood. "I'm leaving." When she reached the door she said, "Think before you sign." Olivia exhaled. "She doesn't want you to be happy." I said, "She's just worried. She doesn't trust me. She barely knows you." "That's the problem," Olivia said. "She fills your head with fear." I rubbed my face. "I just need time." She nodded, but her eyes hardened. "Of course." Later that evening Olivia cooked dinner and acted gentle again. She said, "Daniel, do you believe in us?" "Yes." "Do you believe we're building a life together?" "Yes." "Then don't let papers scare you." After dinner I went outside. The stars were bright, but my chest felt tight. From the porch I heard Olivia on the phone. "Yes," she whispered. "He's almost ready." Pause. "I know. I'm handling it." Another pause. "No, not yet. So, we'll close the deal." My stomach dropped. I stepped inside. "Who were you talking to?" She jumped. "You scared me." "Who was it?" "Work. You're acting strange." I said, "What deal?" She laughed. "You misheard." I didn't answer. She touched my arm. "Daniel, please don't start doubting us now." The next morning she laid the papers out again. "Just sign these," she said. "Then everything will be easier." I scanned the pages. "Joint ownership?" "Yes." "My father's land becomes ours." "That's marriage." "I thought marriage was about love." "It is," she said. "This is just paperwork." I said, "I feel like I'm giving something away." "You're sharing it," she replied. "With your future wife." Mark stopped by that afternoon. "What's with the serious faces?" he asked. I showed him the papers. He skimmed them. "Looks standard." "Really?" "Yeah." "You don't trust your fiancé?" I looked at Olivia. She whispered, "Tell him you trust me." I said, "I trust her." Mark smiled. "Then sign." Grace didn't come by that night. Or the next day. Olivia stayed close to me constantly. She said, "After this we can finally relax." I asked, "Why does this feel like pressure?" She answered, "Because big steps are scary." On the third night I dreamed of my father again. He stood at the fence and said, "Watch your hands." I woke up sweating. At breakfast Olivia kissed my cheek. "Today." I nodded. We sat at the table. The pen lay between us. She said, "Daniel, look at me." I did. "Do you love me?" "Yes." "Then choose us." My hand shook as I picked up the pen. I signed the first page. Then the second. Then the third. She exhaled and squeezed my hands. "You won't regret this." I tried to smile. She gathered the papers and said, "I'll file these tomorrow." That evening I drove to Grace's house. She didn't answer the door. I sat in my truck and stared at the road, feeling hollow. When I returned, Olivia was humming in the kitchen. She said, "Everything's done." "What do you mean?" "The property. Legally. Ours now." I felt the air leave my lungs. She kissed me. "See? Easy." I held her, but my chest hurt. And I told myself love requires trust, even when the ground starts slipping. I parked outside the house and saw the lights on in the living room. I hadn't told Olivia I was coming back early. My chest felt tight as I opened the door and heard laughter that didn't belong to me. "Mark?" I said. Silence followed, then Olivia's voice, soft and slow. "Daniel, you're home." I stepped into the living room and saw Mark sitting on the couch, shirt half unbuttoned, Olivia standing in front of him fixing her hair. I said, "What is this?" Mark stood. "Man, listen." I raised my hand. "Don't." Olivia crossed her arms. "You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow. That's your first answer?" Mark said, "It's not what it looks like." I laughed once. "It's exactly what it looks like." Olivia sighed. "Daniel, don't make this dramatic." My hands started shaking. "Dramatic? You're in my house with my best friend." Mark muttered, "I didn't want it like this." I stared at him. "Then why is it like this?" He looked at the floor. Olivia said, "We need to talk." I said, "You don't get to decide that." She shrugged. "You're standing here, so clearly we do." I felt something crack inside me. "How long?" She answered without blinking. "Long enough." Mark whispered, "I'm sorry." I asked him, "Did you help her with the contracts?" He froze. Olivia said, "He did." The room spun. "You planned it together?" Mark said, "I thought you'd be okay. It's just business." I shouted, "You sold me out." Olivia snapped, "You were too emotional to think straight." I said, "You said you loved me." She laughed. I said what I needed to say. My voice broke. "Then what was I to you?" She looked at the wall. "A way out." Mark tried to step closer. "Daniel." I backed away. "Stay there." Olivia said, "The land was the future. You were just the bridge." I felt sick. "My father's land." She nodded. "Exactly." Mark said, "We never wanted to hurt you." I laughed again louder. "You already destroyed me." Olivia went to the table and grabbed her bag. "We're leaving." I said, "You're not taking anything else." She smiled. "I already did." Mark looked around. "We should go." I said, "You're walking out like this?" Olivia said, "You'll survive." I stepped in front of the door. "Answer me one thing. Was any of it real?" She met my eyes. "No." My legs almost gave out. Mark whispered, "I'm sorry, man." I said, "Get out." They moved past me. Olivia brushed my shoulder like I was nothing. The door closed. The house went silent. I stood there and said, "Dad, I failed." No one answered. I walked to the kitchen and saw the folder missing. The drawer where I kept cash was open. I slid to the floor. I whispered, "How did I not see this?" The walls felt too big, too empty. I heard the wind outside and thought of my father's voice telling me to protect this place. I said, "I tried." My phone buzzed. A message from Olivia, "Don't contact me." I threw the phone across the room. I sat there until the sun came up. The house where my father died felt like a grave. I said, "I'm alone now." And the words stayed. I picked up the phone again and saw missed calls from Grace. I called her. "Daniel?" Grace said. I answered, "They were together." She went quiet. "Who?" "Olivia and Mark." Grace whispered, "I'm coming over." I said, "Don't." "Daniel, you're not okay." "I will be." "Listen to me." "I can't listen to anyone." She sighed. "I warned you." I said, "I know." We hung up. I walked into my father's old room. The bed was made the way he left it. I said, "You trusted me with everything." I sat on the bed and stared at the wall until the sun climbed higher. Later I drove to Mark's place. His car was gone. I drove to Olivia's apartment. The lights were off. I returned home and sat on the porch. Mark called. "Daniel," he said, "we didn't plan for you to find out like that." I said, "You planned everything else." He said, "Olivia needed security. She needed my land." He whispered, "You'll understand someday." I said, "Don't call me again." He said, "I was your brother." I hung up. I stood and walked the fence line. My father's boots leaned against the post. I picked them up and said, "You worked your whole life for this." My chest burned. I went inside and locked the doors. That evening Grace came anyway. She looked at me and said, "They took advantage of your heart." I said, "They took my life." She held my face. "This isn't the end." I pulled away. "It feels like it." She sat with me in silence. After she left, the house grew darker. I lay on the floor and stared at the ceiling. I said, "I don't know how to keep going." The night answered with nothing. I closed my eyes and saw Olivia's smile and Mark's eyes and the way my father used to stand at the window every morning. I whispered, "I'm sorry." When I finally slept, the sky was light again, and I woke up knowing nothing would ever be the same. I stood in the kitchen and spoke out loud. "I trusted you. Both of you." The room gave no answer. I opened the drawer and found one photo of my father and me on the porch. I said, "I won't lose this too." I placed the photo on the table and sat across from it. "I don't know what comes next," I said, "but this place is in my heart." The clock ticked. Outside, birds started singing. I stood and wiped my face. "I will survive this," I said. I turned off the light and walked back into the silent house, carrying the weight of everything that broke tonight. It hurt. I woke up on the floor and said, "I hate this house." No one answered. My phone buzzed. "Work again." I said, "I'm not coming." I drank from the bottle and whispered, "Dad, I'm sorry." The bottle said nothing. Later Mark's name flashed. I didn't answer. Grace knocked that night. "Daniel, open the door." I said, "Go away. Please." I opened it. She looked at the bottle. "You're falling apart." I already fell. She said, "Come eat." "I'm not hungry." "You need help." "I need sleep." She touched my arm. "This isn't living." I shrugged. "It's existing." She sighed. "I'll come back." After Grace left, I drank again. The next morning I missed work. My boss called. "Daniel, where are you?" "Not there." "You're fired if this keeps up." "Do whatever." I hung up. I drove until I ran out of gas near a coffee shop. Inside I ordered whiskey, but the girl behind the counter said, "This is a cafe." I laughed. "Then coffee." She handed me the cup. "Name?" "Daniel." "I'm Emily." I said, "I don't want to talk." Emily replied, "That's fine." I sat for an hour. When I stood up I said, "Thank you." Emily said, "Come back tomorrow?" I did. "Rough day?" Emily asked. "Every day." "Want to tell me?" I shook my head. She said, "Okay." The third day I said, "They took everything." Emily said, "Who?" "My fiancé. My best friend." Emily said, "That's cruel." I said, "I deserved it. No one deserves betrayal." I looked at her. "You don't know me." "I know pain." I stopped drinking that night. Grace called. "I'm bringing someone." "Who?" "A lawyer." I said, "I don't care." Grace came with Sarah Kim. Sarah said, "Tell me everything." I said, "It doesn't matter." Sarah replied, "It always matters." Grace said, "Daniel, listen." I told them. Sarah said, "They manipulated you." I signed. Under pressure. I trusted them. That's not consent. Grace whispered, "You're not ruined." Sarah said, "You still have options." I laughed. "Like what?" "Like fighting back." I shook my head. "I'm tired." Sarah leaned forward. "You're alive." Grace said, "Your father would stand." I closed my eyes. Sarah said, "I'll help." I looked up. "Why?" "Because they're wrong." I felt something move inside my chest. I said, "I don't know how." Sarah smiled. "We'll learn." Emily texted. "Coffee?" I went. Emily said, "You look different." "I feel different." "Good." I met a lawyer. Emily smiled. "That sounds hopeful." "I'm scared." "Hope is scary." I finished my coffee. Outside I said, "Thank you for listening." Emily said, "Anytime." I went home. I cleaned the floor. I threw away the bottle. I sat at the table. Grace called. "Tomorrow we start." I said, "Okay." For the first time I believed it. Oh, that night I couldn't sleep. I walked outside and said, "Dad, I'm trying." The wind answered nothing. In the morning Sarah called. "Meet me." "Where?" "My office." I went. Sarah spread papers. "We can challenge the contracts." I said, "They planned everything." "Yes, but you have witnesses." "Who?" "Grace. Maybe Mark." I laughed. "Mark won't help." Sarah said, "Truth scares people." Grace squeezed my hand. "You're not alone." I nodded. Afterward I went to the cafe. Emily said, long face. Big decisions. Good or bad? Both. Emily poured coffee. Choose good. I said, I'm trying. The next week was hard. I went back to work to beg. My boss said, you look like hell. I am. He said, 2 weeks. Prove yourself. Thank you. I ran into Mark's voicemail. Don't call me. I hung up. Grace cooked dinner. You're eating? Grace said. Yes. You're standing. Yes. That's progress. I smiled weakly. Sarah called that night. We found errors in the documents. I said, what does that mean? It means hope. I closed my eyes. Thank you. Emily texted again. Walk. Okay. We walked the quiet street. Emily said, you're breathing. I forgot how. She laughed. You're learning. I said, do you think people change? Yes. Even after breaking? Especially then. I stopped and looked at the sky. For the first time since the night everything broke, the darkness didn't feel endless. I whispered, I'm still here. Emily said, that's enough for today. I went home. I wrote my father's name on paper and said, I'll protect this. I slept. Morning came. Grace called. Ready? Yes. Sarah waited with files. This will hurt, Sarah said. I know. But you'll survive. I'm learning. I left the office lighter. At the cafe Emily smiled. Victory? Beginning. That's better. I nodded. I walked back to the house and opened every window. The air moved. So did my heart. I said, I'm not done. I called Grace and said, thank you for staying. Grace replied, always. I called Sarah and said, I won't quit. Sarah replied, good. I texted Emily, coffee tomorrow? Emily replied, yes. I looked at the photo of my father and said, watch me. The house was quiet but not empty. I finally believed tomorrow could be different. I turned off the light and whispered, I'm still standing. I stepped outside again and said, this pain will not own me anymore today or tomorrow or ever again. The night felt softer. My chest felt steadier. I walked back inside and closed the door with care and purpose and courage. I whispered again, I choose life starting right now. Sarah looked at me and said, if you want justice, you have to stop acting wounded and start acting careful. I replied, I don't know how to be careful. I only know how to hurt. She said, then use that. Nathan Cole introduced himself with a handshake. I find truth for people who don't know where to look. I said, I don't have much left. Nathan replied, that's when people fight hardest. We sat around my kitchen table. Grace poured coffee. Sarah spread files. Nathan opened a notebook. Sarah asked, tell Nathan everything. I said, Olivia took my land. Mark helped. Contracts were arranged behind my back. Nathan nodded. Anyone else involved? I said, I don't know. Nathan said, we will. Grace whispered, be strong. I nodded. Sarah said, first step is evidence. Nathan added, second step is silence. I asked, what does that mean? Nathan said, you act broken. You let Olivia believe she won. I laughed. That part comes easy. Later I met Lucas at the fence. Lucas said, you look bad. I said, that's the plan. Lucas frowned. What's going on? I told Lucas everything. Lucas said, I'll help. I replied, how? Lucas pulled out a small recorder. This. I stared. You serious? Lucas nodded. I'll get something. That night Olivia called. Daniel, Olivia said sweetly, how are you holding up? I said, barely. She said, that's life. I asked, did you really mean any of it? She laughed softly. You're still on that? I loved you. You loved the idea of me. Did you ever care? Care doesn't pay bills. My chest burned. I lost everything. You'll recover. Did Mark know from the start? Yes. I closed my eyes. You destroyed me. She replied, you were weak. The line went dead. I drove to a bar and ordered water. The bartender said, bad night? I answered, bad life. Lucas arrived an hour later. I followed Mark. Lucas whispered. Where? To Ethan Brooks' office. My heart stopped. Who? Big real estate guy. The next day Nathan called. Daniel, Ethan Brooks and Richard Reynolds have been circling your property for months. I said, Richard Reynolds? Olivia's father. My hand shook. This was planned. Nathan replied, yes. Sarah said, we suspected. I whispered, my whole life was a deal. Grace said, not your soul. Nathan said, Lucas needs to record conversations. Lucas nodded. Already started. That afternoon Lucas called. Mark is meeting Ethan tonight. Where? Downtown restaurant. I went with Lucas. We sat 2 tables away. Mark said, everything's done. Property is secure. Ethan replied, good. Richard will be pleased. Lucas's phone vibrated. Recording. Ethan said, Daniel signed easily. Mark laughed. Too easy. My stomach twisted. Lucas whispered, got it? I said nothing. The next morning Olivia texted. Hope you're still breathing. I typed, barely. She replied, good. I showed Sarah. Sarah said, perfect. I asked, perfect for what? Your mask. Later Nathan said, Richard Reynolds wants the land for development. I said, my father's land. Nathan said, yes. Grace whispered, monsters. That evening Olivia showed up. Daniel, Olivia said, you look terrible. I said, I am. She walked inside like nothing happened. Where's the folder? I asked. She smiled. Safe. Can I see it? Why? I just want to know what's left of me. She hesitated then laughed. You're hopeless. She left. Lucas called. Ethan meeting Richard tomorrow. Where? Hotel conference room. Nathan said, we'll be there. The next day Lucas and I sat in the hallway. Richard's voice drifted through the door. Daniel was the key. Ethan replied, now the land is clear. Mark said, he won't recover. Richard said, people like Daniel disappear. My chest burned. Lucas whispered, I got it. Later Sarah listened to the recording. This is everything, Sarah said. I asked, what about Olivia? Nathan replied, she's overconfident. That night I called Olivia. Can we talk? I asked. She sighed. Why? I'm lost. She said, meet me. At the cafe Olivia said, you still love me? I whispered, yes. She smiled. That's your weakness. I said, I just want peace. You'll never have it. She stood and left. Lucas watched from the corner. Lucas whispered, got audio? I nodded. Grace called. You sound stronger. I'm pretending. That's enough for now. Days passed. I missed work. I drank water. I answered Olivia's messages with sadness. Nathan said, you're playing it right. Sarah said, soon. Lucas said, Mark is cracking. Mark called. Daniel, Mark said, you okay? I replied, no. He sighed. I didn't want this. Then why did you do it? I was scared. You sold me. He whispered, I know. Can you help me now? Silence. I can't, Mark said. I hung up. Nathan said, that conversation helps you. How? Truth leaks through fear. Weeks later Sarah said, we're ready. Ready for what? For the fall. Grace hugged me. Lucas smiled. Nathan said, they don't see this coming. That night Olivia texted again. Still alive. I typed, barely. She replied, good. I stared at the screen and whispered, the game begins. I poured coffee and said, Sarah, where do we start? She looked at me. Pressure them quietly. Small leaks. I nodded. Small leaks. Nothing obvious. Nathan said, a pinprick to start. Olivia will notice eventually. I laughed softly. I like pins. Lucas tapped my shoulder. Ethan Brooks is jittery. Something's wrong with the deal. I said, good. Keep him sweating. Lucas grinned. You sound like revenge is fun. I shrugged. It's necessary. That afternoon I called Richard Reynolds' office. Daniel? Richard said. Yes. Just checking on some clauses. Everything's fine. I see. Strange, the signatures don't match dates. Silence. I'll have my assistant correct it. I said, please do. I hung up. Mark called me later. Daniel. Olivia is asking about you. I said, I'm busy. He hesitated. She says she wants to see you. I laughed softly. See me? She can't handle me yet. You're scaring her. Good. At the cafe Emily asked, you look tense. I am. Working on the land? No. Working on Olivia. She raised her eyebrows. That sounds dangerous. I like dangerous. I texted Olivia. Coffee tomorrow? She replied instantly. Yes. We need to talk. I typed back, of course. The next day she walked in wearing a smile that could kill. Daniel, she said, you're hard to reach. I've been busy. She sat across from me. I wanted to explain. I can change. I smiled faintly. I believe you can change. But why now? She leaned closer. Because I miss us. I said, I know. But we need a fresh start. Fresh start. Yes. For business. She frowned. Business. I said, your deals are slipping. Little leaks everywhere. Her eyes widened. What leaks? I sipped coffee. Just rumors, miscalculations. Tiny mistakes. Olivia laughed nervously. That's impossible. I assure you it's happening. Mark called again. She's panicking. Revenue down, partners questioning her. I said, good. Keep monitoring. Don't intervene. You're enjoying this. Someone should. I met Sarah at my office. Reports show Olivia's investors are cold, she said. Perfect, I replied. She thinks she's untouchable. Small cracks, Sarah said. Yes, I said. The bigger collapse comes later. That evening Olivia came to my property. Daniel, she said softly. I want to talk. I said, I'm busy with paperwork. She smiled. I can help. I chuckled. That's tempting, but no. Her smile faltered. You don't want me? I leaned back. I want what I always wanted, fairness. She said nothing. I texted Lucas. Follow her tonight. Nothing risky, just eyes. He replied, got it. Later Nathan called. Daniel, your strategy is working. Olivia is unstable. I said, good. Panic suits her. The next day I met Emily for coffee. You're calm today, she said. I have to be. Even when Olivia tries to charm you? I smiled. Especially then. She nodded. You're patient. I learned patience from pain. I called Mark. How's Olivia? Frantic. Her meetings are a mess. She's losing control. I said, perfect. Let her feel it. You're cold? Calculated, I said. Olivia texted. Dinner tonight? Please. I replied, of course. Let's talk business. At dinner she said, Daniel, I misjudged you. I smiled faintly. We all misjudge. What's important is recovery. I want us back. I think we both know that's not happening. Her hands trembled. Why are you so distant? I said, I have to be. Your empire is cracking. I can't falter. Mark called again. She's asking about your moves. I said, good. Let her chase shadows. Lucas reported later. Olivia is calling investors herself, frantic, asking why deals are stalling. I said, perfect. Keep watching. Emily said, you're wearing a mask. I have to. If she sees me breaking, she wins. You're strong. I've learned. Grace visited. She's underestimating you. I know. That's why she's panicking. Daniel, don't let it consume you. I won't. I'm careful. Later that night Olivia texted, please. We can fix this. Meet me? I typed back, tomorrow? Coffee. Business first. Nathan called. Daniel, you're doing well. Small leaks have shaken her foundation. I said, good. She can't touch me now. Patience. I have plenty. The next morning Mark called again. She's desperate. She thinks she's losing. I laughed. Good. Let her believe she can still play. She's reaching out emotionally. I know. Play along. Never show weakness. Sarah said, every day she underestimates you is another day you gain advantage. I said, exactly. Let her crumble quietly. Emily texted, you look different. I replied, I am. She asked, better? I typed, yes. Stronger. Olivia called that evening. Daniel, I'm sorry. I can be better. I said, I'm listening. She paused. Please, don't give up on us. I smiled faintly. I'm not giving up. But I'm not falling either. Mark whispered through the phone, you're relentless. I'm careful, I said. You're scary. Calculated, I replied. I closed my eyes and whispered to myself, she thinks she's winning. She's wrong. Emily texted, coffee tomorrow? I typed, of course. I poured another cup of coffee and watched the sunrise. Small cracks were forming in her kingdom, and I was patient enough to watch them widen. The game had begun. The courthouse smelled like polished wood and tension. I gripped the table edge and whispered, This is it. Sarah Kim leaned over. Stay calm, Daniel. Let the evidence do the talking. I nodded. I've been calm for months. Let's see if that matters. Nathan Cole checked his notes. Everyone's waiting for the first witness. The game begins now. The judge called the court to order. Olivia Reynolds sat in the defendant's section, eyes cold but nervous. Mark Holloway avoided my gaze. Ethan Brooks scowled. Richard Reynolds looked irritated, like he couldn't control anything anymore. Sarah whispered, "We start with the contracts." I said, "Good. Let them choke on their lies." The first attorney spoke. "Your Honor, we present evidence of financial misrepresentation, manipulation and coercion in the acquisition of Daniel Carter's property." I leaned back. Finally, the truth gets a voice. The screen lit up with emails and recorded conversations. Lucas Carter's recordings played. Mark's voice trembled. "Everything's done. Property is secure. He won't recover." My chest tightened. There it is. Olivia's face changed, mask slipping. "Impossible." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Daniel Carter, do you confirm the authenticity of this evidence?" "I do," I said firmly. Sarah said softly, "You're doing great." Nathan whispered, "They won't recover from this." The room buzzed as Ethan Brooks and Richard Reynolds murmured to each other. Olivia whispered to Mark, "Fix it. Now." I said under my breath, "Too late." The lawyer continued. "Additionally, witnesses have confirmed undue influence and deception, which render the contracts null and void." Mark's face went pale. He whispered, "Daniel?" I said nothing. Olivia's hand trembled over her purse. "Daniel, please. I can make this right." I looked at her. "You destroyed what you wanted. There's nothing left to fix." She leaned forward. "I can give you money. Everything. Just sign a settlement." I shook my head. "I don't want anything from you. Only what's rightfully mine." Ethan Brooks coughed, clearly uncomfortable. "We had business arrangements." Sarah interrupted. "Business does not excuse fraud." Richard Reynolds slammed the table. "This is absurd." I said quietly, "No, it's truth." The courtroom murmured. Olivia looked desperate now. "Daniel, I loved you. I swear." I stared at her. "You never loved me. Only my land." Mark's knees shook. He muttered, I didn't think it would go this far." I said, "You helped plan it. You knew exactly what would happen." Nathan whispered, "The recordings are damning." Sarah said, "Daniel, just let it play out." The judge nodded. "We will review all evidence thoroughly. Meanwhile, the defendant may not interfere." Olivia's lips quivered. "Daniel, please. Don't let them take everything from me." I said, "You already lost. Nothing I say can undo what you did to me." Mark whispered, "Daniel, I'm sorry." I looked at him. Too late for apologies. Ethan Brooks tried to argue. "This is business as usual." I said, "Not when it ruins someone's life." Richard Reynolds leaned back, furious. "This is personal now." I said calmly, "It's always been personal for me. You chose wrong." The next few hours were a blur. Witnesses confirmed dates, signatures, and conversations. Lucas's recordings played repeatedly. Every lie Olivia, Mark, Ethan, and Richard told unraveled in real time. I whispered to myself, finally, every lie exposed. Sarah nudged me. "They're crumbling." I watched Mark sink into his chair, face pale. I didn't think. I thought it would be different," he muttered. I said nothing. Olivia whispered, "Daniel, please? I can change. Give me a chance." I looked at her. "You already chose your path. I only followed mine." Nathan said quietly, "Patience, Daniel. Let them see their mistakes fully." The judge reviewed the evidence and said, "Based on the overwhelming proof, the contracts are null and void. Daniel Carter is restored as the legal owner of the property. Further punitive measures for fraud and deception will be considered." I felt a weight lift from my chest. "It's over." Olivia gasped. No, this can't happen." Mark's shoulders slumped. "Daniel, I failed you." I said softly, "You failed yourself." Ethan Brooks whispered harshly, This damages us." I said, "It only restores what's mine." Richard Reynolds slammed his fist on the table. "This is ridiculous." I said, "This is justice." Sarah leaned closer. "Daniel, are you okay?" I shook my head slowly. "I'm not happy. I don't feel triumph. Only release." Grace whispered, "That's what matters. You survived." Olivia tried one last time. Daniel, I can fix everything. Just forgive me. I looked at her face, her eyes desperate, pleading. I don't forgive you. I don't hate you either. I just move forward. Mark muttered, Daniel, you're stronger than I realized. I said, I had to be. The courtroom cleared slowly. Ethan, Richard, Olivia, and Mark were escorted away. Their network collapsed, deals ruined, reputations shattered. Lucas whispered, it's done. I nodded. It's done. Sarah said, your property, your life. All restored. I looked at the papers confirming everything. My father's land. What? Finally. Grace squeezed my shoulder. You didn't just survive, Daniel. You reclaimed your world. I whispered to myself, I reclaimed it, but it feels empty. Emily called. How's the hero today? I chuckled softly. Not a hero. Just free. Nathan said, freedom feels lighter than revenge, doesn't it? I said quietly, yes. I feel nothing but release. Olivia's text came in again. Daniel, please? I ignored them. Mark's voice came once more broken. Daniel, I'm sorry. Truly. I said, it's nothing to fix now. I walked outside the courthouse. The sun hit my face. Warmth. Relief. No joy. Only the calm I hadn't felt in months. I whispered, it's finally mine. The city buzzed around me. People moved, lives continued, but I paused. I breathed. I let the weight leave my chest. The property, my father's land, my life, I had it back. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel rage, I didn't feel hate. I felt free. Sarah said, congratulations, Daniel. It's over. I nodded. Yes, it's over. Grace smiled. Now you can build what you want. No one can stop you. I looked at the horizon, thinking of the fights, the betrayal, the planning. I whispered, I survived all of it. And now, I own myself again. I turned, walking back to my car. No glances back. No regret. Only release. The chapter of betrayal was closed. The only path ahead was mine. And I would walk it carefully, patiently, fully aware that survival and justice were not the same, but finally, at last, I had both. The house was quiet, too quiet. I poured a cup of coffee and stared at the sunrise. It's over, I whispered, but the emptiness didn't leave. Emily knocked softly. Morning, Daniel. Mind some company? I said, not at all. She came in, carrying her usual warmth, setting the mug on the table. Still thinking about everything? She asked. I thought winning would feel better. I shrugged. It doesn't. I have the land back. The contracts are void. Justice served. Emily nodded slowly. But it's hollow, I admitted. I wanted to feel relief. I wanted anger gone. But it's still here, just quieter. She smiled gently. You survived. That counts. I said, surviving isn't the same as living. Emily sat across from me. Then start living. Start small. Coffee, sunrise, conversations. I chuckled faintly. Small things. Maybe I forgot how. Grace walked in, placing her hands on my shoulders. Daniel, you've been through hell. It's okay to take your time. I thought revenge would fix me, I said quietly. I thought seeing them crumble would heal the emptiness. Grace shook her head. It doesn't work that way. Revenge only clears obstacles. It doesn't mend hearts. I looked at her. So what do I do now? Start again, Grace said softly. Piece by piece. That afternoon, I received news about Olivia. Legal action was taken. She faced serious charges for fraud and manipulation. I whispered to myself, justice, finally. Mark Holloway called. His voice trembled. Daniel, I'm leaving town. I can't face this. I said, goodbye, Mark. Don't come back. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know, I said, but my voice lacked heat. It was emptiness speaking, not anger. Emily suggested, want to walk? I agreed. We strolled along the property line, feeling the wind across the fields. You seem lighter, she said. I am lighter in some ways, I admitted, but heavy in others. I wanted revenge and I got it. But it didn't fix the part of me that hurts. She glanced at me. Then maybe you need something different. Something not tied to pain. I nodded slowly. I don't know what that is yet. Emily smiled. You'll find it. That night, I stared at the old oak in the yard, thinking of my father. I thought revenge would make me whole. It didn't. Grace joined me, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. You've learned more than you realize. Revenge is not the answer. Healing is. I said softly, Then what am I supposed to do with all this power, all this control? Use it for yourself, Daniel. Build your life, not just protect it, Grace said. I nodded, feeling a strange calm. Not joy, not satisfaction. Calm. A space where I could finally breathe. The next morning, Emily arrived with breakfast. Daniel, you need energy to rebuild. I laughed faintly. Rebuild? That sounds right. But how? Step by step, she said. Coffee, conversation, laughter. Maybe even mistakes. I sighed. I forgot how to make mistakes without fear. You'll remember, Emily said. And I'll be here to remind you. I took a bite, tasting warmth I hadn't felt in months. Thank you, I said quietly. Later I walked through the house alone. Every room reminded me of Betrayal, of Olivia, of Mark, of Ethan and Richard. But I also saw my father's photographs, my own memories, the life that was mine. I whispered, it's my world again. My land, my rules. But my heart, still broken. Grace appeared behind me. It's okay to admit that. You don't have to pretend anymore. I nodded. I've been pretending strength for months. I'm exhausted. You can rest, she said softly. Even rebuild slowly. I walked to the porch looking over the fields. I wanted revenge to make me feel alive. It didn't. It just cleared the obstacles for me to finally look at myself. Emily joined me, leaning against the railing. You're looking now. That's progress. I said, it's terrifying. I thought I'd feel complete. But I feel raw. Exposed. She smiled gently. Good. That's where healing begins. Rawness before repair. I chuckled softly. Sounds like a long road. Every worthwhile road is, Emily said. But you're not alone. I nodded. I forgot the importance of allies. I was so focused on revenge I didn't see who was truly with me. Some people stay. Some leave. But the ones who matter will guide you, Emily said. I looked at her in Grace, thinking of the months of plotting, waiting, and suffering. I thought I'd find peace in revenge. I only found emptiness and clarity. Grace said, then let clarity guide you. I looked at the horizon. I see now. Revenge didn't heal. It cleared the path. The rest, that's up to me. Emily touched my arm. And we'll walk it with you. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of anger lift slightly. For the first time I can look forward. Not at them, not at what they took, but at what I can rebuild. Grace said, and you will. Step by step. I nodded. Step by step. No rush, no shortcuts. Just moving forward. The wind blew softly across the fields. I realized that the bitterness of revenge could fade, but only if I allowed myself to feel again, to let connection and trust slowly return. Emily said, Daniel, smiles don't have to be forced. You'll find one naturally. I looked at her and for the first time in months, a genuine curve appeared on my lips. Small, fragile, but real. I'll try, I said. And you won't fail, Emily whispered. Later, as the sun dipped behind the trees, I stood alone for a moment. The weight of revenge is gone. Now I carry only the weight of myself, and maybe that's enough. Grace said quietly, it's more than enough, Daniel. It's everything you need to start again. I nodded. Then I'll start. Not with hate. Not with schemes. Just living. And for the first time I believed I could. The first light of morning hit the fields as I stepped outside. The air smelled like wet earth and possibility. I took a deep breath, letting it fill me. This is mine, I whispered. Lucas Carter was already near the barn, setting up tools. Morning, Daniel. Big day. I smiled faintly. Every day is a big day now. Ready to rebuild? Lucas grinned. Always. Let's make this place shine. We walked through the land, inspecting fences and fields. I said, Dad would be proud. Hard to believe it's really ours again. Lucas shrugged. You made it ours, Daniel. I just help. I chuckled. I remember helping you with chores as a kid. Now we're doing it for real. He laughed. Yeah, but now the stakes are higher. I smiled, feeling warmth. I've learned a lot about stakes. Sarah Kim called later. Daniel, I'm glad things settled. You're finally free to focus on yourself. I said, thanks, Sarah. Your guidance helped more than I can say. She laughed softly. And Nathan's support, right? I replied, absolutely. He's always been a steady hand. You too deserve peace, she said. I'm moving on with my life. Nathan too. I nodded. Good. You earned it. Emily arrived in the afternoon, a basket of seedlings in her hands. Daniel, thought we could start planting today. I grinned. Perfect timing. We started with the small garden near the house. Emily planted flowers while I dug rows for vegetables. Daniel, you're smiling, Emily said, glancing at me. I am, I admitted. I didn't think I could feel like this after everything. She laughed softly. Maybe you're healing faster than you think. I looked at her. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It just makes room for something new. Emily touched my arm. Then let's fill it with good things. Lucas joined us, holding a bag of seeds. We can make this a community garden too. Let people help. I nodded slowly. I like that idea. Dad always wanted this land to bring people together, not just stand empty. Emily smiled. Then let's honor him properly. I spent the next few weeks working hard, opening parts of the land to the local community. Children ran through fields, neighbors helped with planting, and volunteers came to build benches. Lucas thrived in the middle of it all, laughing and joking with kids. Daniel, this is exactly what we needed, he said. I see that, I replied, watching the energy fill the farm. Feels good, doesn't it? Better than revenge ever felt, Lucas said with a grin. I laughed softly. You're right. Much better. Emily joined me during breaks. You're calmer now, she said. I am, I admitted. The land, the people, it's grounding me. She smiled, brushing dirt from my sleeve. And maybe you're ready for something else. I looked at her. Something else. Her eyes held something soft and honest. Maybe us. I swallowed, feeling my heart stir. Emily? She laughed gently. No pressure. Just think about it. I nodded. I am. Nathan stopped by one afternoon. Daniel, looks like you found peace after all the chaos. I smiled faintly. I'm getting there. Slowly but surely. He nodded. Good. That's all anyone can hope for. Sarah came with him. Daniel, you've rebuilt more than land. You've rebuilt yourself. I said quietly, it doesn't feel like complete healing yet. Sarah shook her head. Healing takes time. But you're on the right path. I took a deep breath. I think I can forgive myself now. That's new. Emily arrived that evening with dinner for us. You look tired but happy. I am, I admitted. It's a different kind of tired though. Fulfilling. She laughed softly. I'll take that kind of tired any day. I smiled. Thanks for being here, Emily. Really? She touched my hand. Always, Daniel. Lucas walked by with a group of kids. Daniel, come see this. I followed, smiling. They had built a small scarecrow for the garden. It's perfect, I said, ruffling a boy's hair. The boy laughed. Daniel, it's for you. I said, I'll protect it just like I protect this land. Emily looked at me. You've come a long way, Daniel. I nodded slowly. Yeah, I have. And I'm not done yet. We walked back to the house as the sun set, casting a golden glow over the fields. Emily held my arm gently. I think, maybe this is the start of something real, she said. I think so too, I replied, feeling a spark I hadn't felt in months. Grace stopped by that evening. Daniel, I've been watching. You've done well. The land, the people, even yourself. I said softly, I still have a long way to go, but I feel lighter. She smiled. That's progress. Keep moving forward. I looked at the horizon. Step by step. I've learned the hard way, but I'll do it right this time. Emily leaned on my shoulder. And I'll be with you every step. I smiled faintly, warmth spreading in my chest. Thank you. The community project grew over the next months. We held small festivals, planted more crops, and opened part of the land as a shared space for locals. Lucas thrived in leadership roles, teaching kids, coordinating volunteers. I watched him proud. You've done well, Lucas. Dad would be proud. He grinned. We both have. Thanks for trusting me. I nodded. Always. Emily and I spent more time together, laughing over meals, walking the property, planning improvements. Each moment felt simple and real. One evening, sitting on the porch with her beside me, I whispered, I forgive myself now. All the anger, the mistakes. I'm done carrying them. Emily smiled softly. That's all anyone can hope for. I looked at the fields, the garden, the community gathering around us. I built more than land. I built life. Dad's dream, our dream, it's alive. Emily leaned closer. And so are you, Daniel? I smiled truly this time. Yes, alive. Finally. Lucas walked up with a basket of freshly harvested vegetables. Dinner's ready, Daniel? I laughed. Let's eat, then plan the next steps. Emily said softly, step by step, Daniel. I nodded, holding her hand briefly. Step by step. And this time, we do it together. The sun dipped below the horizon, golden light reflecting on the fields. I breathed deeply, feeling the weight lift. The land was ours. The community thrived. My father's dream lived on. And I had begun something new, something real. I whispered to myself, a life rebuilt, finally mine to cherish. And for the first time in years I felt whole. The morning air was crisp as I walked across the fields, my boots crunching softly against the soil. The sun hovered low, painting everything in warm gold. I paused by the old oak, my hand brushing its bark. Dad, I hope I'm doing right by you, I whispered. Lucas Carter appeared from the barn, whistling a quiet tune. Morning, Daniel. Coffee ready? I chuckled faintly. Always. Let's take a break first, then back to work. We walked toward the farmhouse together. The land looked alive, green shoots, blooming flowers, the community garden thriving. Felt good. Peaceful. I never thought I'd see it like this again, I admitted. Lucas smiled. You earned it, Daniel. You built it back stronger. I nodded slowly. Stronger, maybe. But it wasn't easy. Later I returned inside, checking the mailbox. A single envelope caught my eye, thick and cream-colored. I opened it. My heart sank before I even read it. Olivia Reynolds. The handwriting was familiar. Elegant. Deliberate. I unfolded the letter. Daniel, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I was selfish and cruel. I thought love could be bought, but I see now it never could. Please know I regret everything and hope one day you can forgive me. I felt the familiar surge of emotion, but this time it was different. Calm, distant. No anger. No betrayal. Just understanding. I looked at the paper in my hands. I whispered, you don't get to hurt me anymore. I carried it to the fireplace, the flames dancing gently. Lucas peeked in. Daniel, you burning it? I nodded. Yes. Not in anger, not in hate. Just peace. Lucas raised an eyebrow. That's surprising. I smiled faintly. I don't need her apology. I needed closure. And this is closure. The paper curled and blackened in the flames. I watched until it turned to ash. The smoke rose, carrying memories of betrayal, loss, and survival. I whispered, I survived. That's what matters. Later, I walked the property alone, boots crunching again on the soil, sun higher now. I spoke aloud, not to anyone but the morning and maybe to whoever might listen. Trust, it's fragile. I learned that the hard way. You give it freely and sometimes people will take it. And sometimes people you think are closest to you will betray it. I paused at the edge of the pond, watching the reflection ripple. But losing trust doesn't mean losing yourself. I had to lose a lot before I understood that. The wind blew through the trees, carrying a whisper of memory. Olivia's smile. Mark's fear. Ethan and Richard's scheming. All of it. And yet here I stood, still upright, still breathing, still alive. I said quietly, survival isn't just existing. It's learning, rebuilding, and choosing life every day despite the pain. Emily appeared, carrying a small basket of herbs. She glanced at me. You're talking to yourself again. I chuckled softly. Maybe. Or maybe I'm talking to anyone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone out there has lost trust, has been hurt, and needs to know they can survive too. Emily smiled gently. You're stronger than you know. I said, no, stronger because I had to be. Because there was nothing else left but to rise. She nodded, understanding. And you did. I leaned on the railing, looking across the fields. I used to think revenge would heal me. It didn't. I used to think anger would fill the void. It didn't. I used to think holding grudges would give me strength. It didn't. Emily asked softly, then what did? I smiled faintly. Acceptance. Choosing to move forward. Choosing life over hate. Choosing trust in myself again, even if it means being vulnerable. Lucas came up beside us. Daniel, the community center's ready for the spring planting. Want to start tomorrow? I nodded. Yes. Step by step like always. I took a deep breath. And this time, every step is mine to choose. Not dictated by betrayal, by anger, or by anyone else's mistakes. Emily rested a hand on my shoulder. Then let's make it count. I looked at her, at Lucas, at the fields. We will. And I'll remember every lesson, every scar, but I won't carry the weight of their actions anymore. I walked slowly toward the pond, tossing small stones across the water, watching the ripples expand. Life, it's fragile, messy, and unpredictable. But it's mine. And I'll live it fully, no matter the shadows behind me. I paused, touching the water, feeling the cold against my fingertips. Trust again, love again, hope again. All of it. Because survival isn't just staying alive. Survival is choosing to keep your heart beating with purpose. The wind carried the faint scent of flowers and earth, the sounds of birds and distant laughter from the community garden. I closed my eyes for a moment. I whispered softly, I forgive myself. I accept what happened. I will not be haunted by it. And I will live. The sun rose higher, warmth spreading across the fields. I took a deep breath, feeling the air fill my lungs, my chest rising and falling with life. Emily smiled at me. Ready to start the day? I nodded, truly nodding this time. Yes. Ready to start every day. Ready to build, to grow, to live. Lucas called from the garden. Daniel, come see these seedlings. I laughed softly, a sound of real joy this time. Coming. I walked toward the laughter, toward the land, toward the life I had rebuilt. Every step was mine. Every choice mine. The past had its lessons, but the future, that belonged only to me. I looked back once at the fireplace, remembering the letter, the betrayal, the losses. The flames had taken them, leaving only ash. I felt light. I felt peace. I whispered aloud, betrayal taught me more than anger ever could. It taught me resilience. It taught me self-worth. It taught me that survival is not just breathing, it's choosing life with intention. Emily came beside me, smiling warmly. You've come far, Daniel. I looked across the fields, across the garden, across the life that was mine. Far enough to know what matters. Far enough to trust again, starting with myself. The sun climbed higher. The wind played through the leaves. Birds called. Children laughed in the distance. The earth smelled alive. I whispered to the morning, to the air, to anyone who would listen. Trust, loss, betrayal, they all leave marks. But marks are not chains. They are reminders that I survived, that I can rise, that I can choose. Emily touched my arm gently. And you do. I nodded slowly, feeling every word resonate. Yes, I do. And I will keep choosing it. Every day. I stepped fully into the sunlight, letting it warm my face. My property, my life, my future stretched endlessly before me. No shadows from the past could reach me now. I smiled faintly. Betrayal taught me everything I needed to know. And now, I choose life. Fully. Completely. Freely. For the first time in years I felt whole. And this time I meant it.